Ever since he debuted in the majors in 2024, Paul Skenes has been the face of the Pirates organization. They hadn't had a proper face of the team since Andrew McCutchen, but Skenes was definitely that guy. A number one overall pick, viewed as a generational prospect. He would go on to be a Cy Young winner in 2025. And for the previous 2 years, he being the face of the franchise was also the face of how do you get this team on track? How do you get this team to the postseason? Because you can't waste Paul Skenes' years in Pittsburgh. In 2026, the Pirates have disappointed. The rotation, which could have been one of the best in the game, has disappointed. And whenever you look at that disappointment, Paul Skenes is again the face. Good morning, and welcome to Offbeat here on North Shore 9, presented by FanDuel. My name is Alex Stumpf, and this is a daily look at your Pittsburgh Pirates. According to Fangraphs, the Pirates have a roughly 7% chance of making the postseason at the time of this recording. Their back is up against the wall. And I said yesterday that if they lose this series to Miami, a team they are chasing in those wild card standings, it's over. They lose their path to the postseason. They'd have to go on a ridiculous win a dozen in a row type situation, which they haven't shown that they are able to do this year. It's a huge series. It is their do or die series. If there is any fight left in this team, we are going to see it in Miami. And starting game one is Paul Skenes, who has an ERA of 5.20 over his last 15 starts. This has been a very disappointing season for him. Season ERA barely under 4, routinely being hit, especially in the second half of this season. We have theorized, it feels like, for half the year on what could be wrong with Paul Skenes. What's wrong with him? I wrote a story for Book Roll Bucks last month where I really went as deep as I could. Since then, I've got a couple more theories. Let's share some. I really do think this is a mechanical issue at heart. And I am looking still at the midsection lower half. How is he using his body? How is he generating that force? How is he generating that energy? We haven't seen it. I've also heard it theorized from a couple league sources that the arm angle is higher. And as a result, he doesn't have that same level of deception that we saw in 2024 and 2025. Now, going by Baseball Savant data, he went from an average arm angle of 23 degrees in 24 and 25, and now it's 26 degrees in 2026. Now, that's not a huge jump. I usually like 5 degrees whenever I'm like, okay, that's a legitimately different arm slot, but that's trending in that direction. And while last year I thought like the arm angle discussion early in the year was kind of ridiculous, here we are again. It's what I'm hearing around the league is a possible theory. And I would also look at someone like Bubba Chandler, who earlier in the year didn't have the right mechanics in the lower half midsection, and his arm angle kept rising because he was overthrowing. I wouldn't be shocked if there's something similar at play here, but that's my theory. That's just a theory, but I'm taking a pretty, what I feel to be educated guess on the matter. Even so, this isn't the same velocity as we saw those first 2 years. Pretty sure I mentioned this on my last podcast on Skenes, but I saw a video of him throwing 102 for his final pitch of the game against the Rays as he threw 7 innings. And, it looks so free. It looks so easy. And maybe above all else, it looked fun. It looked like Paul was having fun. And that's something I have not seen as much in 2026. Pitching just doesn't look fun anymore whenever he's on the mound. And whenever you have these discussions post game and how much is about arm health and the conversation that he had with Jose Negron with DK Pittsburgh Sports a couple months ago about how it's by design that he's not trying to throw 102. Is that fun? Now, I get we can't all be young and stupid, for our entire lives. At some point, you have to look at the long game, but I think there's some sort of median here, some sort of steps that are being skipped. Is losing fun? Absolutely, losing isn't fun, but this is a team that for most of the year, they were in a playoff spot on July 27. That's deep into the year. And even then, a lot of those starts, there were a lot of times Skenes throws a pitch. He looks down in disgust. He looks visibly upset. I haven't seen a whole lot of smiles as he's come off the mound all year. It just doesn't look fun. And now he's going in for one of the more consequential starts of his young career. Because if he has another outing like we have seen of late, where he gives up 5 runs against Yuri Perez and those Marlins who are pesky as all get out, it's a tough path. This is a must-win series. I don't want to look at what the win probabilities are going to be, but that 7% is going to be, it'll be on one hand at that point of what the Pirates' playoff chances are. It'll be sub 5%, and that is effectively over at that point, at this point of the season. The Pirates need Paul Skenes to pitch like the Paul Skenes of past. Not just because they need that guy who's dominant, but because this rotation right now looks like a mess. Mitch Keller's out for the year, and they didn't acquire a starting pitcher. That 5th spot, bullpen days, maybe we see Wilbur Dotel get called up and, get a chance to start. Maybe we see Antoine Kelly get a chance to start. Maybe we see Christian Curtis get a chance to start. Or maybe they're both guys, and it's always a bullpen day, once out of every 5 games. And that's assuming they stick with a 5-man rotation. This is a young team, and we have seen in the past them go to 6-man rotations, or everyone gets that built-in day of rest just to try to cross the finish line. So they don't have that extra starter. They're already a man down. And Jared Jones, I don't think is ever going to be let off the leash this year. You have to be really concerned about Braxton Ashcraft now that he's in new territory for innings. You have to be very mindful. You have to always make sure that he's on point. It's not unreasonable to think that there's a point with Braxton Ashcraft where he's already at a new innings limit or a new innings high. And the team and the stuff starts diminishing. It just gets to a point where it's like he can't start or he becomes a bulk guy. He's going out there for 3 innings. It's not out of the realm of possibility that could happen depending on how his body holds up. Then you got Bubba Chandler, who his last time out was magnificent. Bubba Chandler is having a for real rookie season, which is something I don't think we see a ton of in the game anymore, especially with young pitching. Where if you look at the season stats, they're not great. And there is that potential for for there to be a stinker along the way. But I do think he has gotten better as the years progressed. He has grown as a pitcher. He has gotten better with his mechanics. I think he's gotten better with how he uses pitches. There's some good things here. But he is a rookie, and he is pitching like a rookie. So you've got bullpen games, guys with innings limits, and a rookie, and the reigning Cy Young. Who should be the guy leading this rotation? No question. It's Skenes. He needs to give quality and quantity. The Pirates' only path to the postseason at this point is if Paul Skenes carries them there. That once every 5 games, the Cy Young returns. Because I do think Jared Jones, Braxton Ashcraft, Bubba Chandler have potential to have good starts. They also have the clunker potential. They also have innings questions. They also have a lot of external things that I don't know how much you can put into their stock right now. It has to be Skenes. It has to be Skenes who leads the way. Because right now, this rotation is 21st in baseball in ERA. 4.44. 21st in baseball. That's not good enough. That's simply not good enough. I think the bullpen's been retooled. They've shown some stuff, but it hasn't made much of a factor so far, in part because the starting pitching has not been sharp. Skenes has the potential to be not only great, but legendary. We saw great last year. We saw great in 2024. But those were years where in 24, the Pirates were young. They weren't ready yet. 25, bad offseason, bad start, not a good year. 26, this was a team that was built to contend. And I'm not making excuses for Ben Cherington or Don Kelly. I'm not making excuses for them right now, especially since so many people online are calling for them to be fired. But whenever you look at this team, could you imagine if they had 2025 Paul Skenes right now? Nobody would be calling them to be fired right now. The Pirates would be in the playoff mix. They'd be maybe in the division mix. But if nothing else, they'd have a wild card spot at this point. In 2024, Paul Skenes always pitched with the extra day of rest. In 2025, very mindful, they gave him that break mid-season where there were a lot of fives and dives. 26, this is really the first year where he was just asked to go. You have to go the full year. And so far, he has really faltered as the year has gone on. And it does raise the question of, like, what if this is just Paul Skenes moving forward? Some of the peripherals are still good, but if you check out those baseball savant, metrics, like the expected ERA, the expected batting average, the whiff rate, those are all in the 80s instead of the high 90s the first 2 years. 80-something percentile. And if he is 80-something percentile, he's still a good pitcher. But the Pirates need an ace. And they have never needed an ace more in the Ben Cherington era than they do right now. If there is a path forward, it has to start with Paul Skenes. The revamped bullpen can help out, especially with those younger starters. But they need their Cy Young to pitch like a Cy Young. And if he's not, that'll be one of the biggest disappointments in one of the most disappointing years in the history of the franchise. Thank you so much for listening to Offbeat here on North Shore 9 presented by FanDuel. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe wherever you find podcasts or check us out on YouTube if you want to see my smiling face. We'll be recording next episode on the road. See you from Altoona. Talk to you then.
All right, that wraps up this episode of North Shore 9. Thanks so much for tuning in, whether you're listening on the podcast or catching us on YouTube. If you enjoyed the show, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It really helps us grow. And if you're listening on the podcast, a quick review goes a long way in helping others find the show. Plus, be sure to tell a friend about us. There's always room for more here in the NS9 community. And for those looking to support us a little more, consider joining our Patreon, become an MVP member, and get exclusive perks while helping us continue to bring you more of the Pirates content you love. Thanks again for all your support, and let's go Bucks.